just wanted to talk because government secrets can be like these specific things, like you were just talking about, specific programs and things like that. MK Ultra we talked about last week, but it can also be kind of a broader sense of the secret is the reality of our economy or something like that. I mean, so like right now in this pandemic, you have not only do you have, of course, the complete botched ability to deal with the pandemic in any way and making America one of the most deadly countries to be in for this pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. That's not a secret. But you also have economics, which is, the economics of the situation, which is continuing to be a crisis. It will get worse. This will likely be similar to the Great Depression. I mean, you have 28 million evictions looming. You have the Richard Wolff, economist Richard Wolff was saying that the largest 1 week unemployment number in the past, 50, 60 years was in the early 1980s. And it was 600,000, 700,000 people declared unemployment in 1 week. And that was unbelievable. Nowadays, we're facing 1 to 2 million every week are declaring unemployment. So signing up for unemployment. So this massive economic collapse and is coming, and they're getting ready to throw people out of houses. The people are struggling. People are destitute, and a lot of people, I think, believe that this is just the way it is. That like the government can bail out some things, but there's just nothing they can do. It's a pandemic. What could they do? They can't. They can only do so much, but we don't need to have an economic system set up this way. Like, if you imagine, let's shrink it down. Imagine 100 people, and it's just a 100-person community, unconnected to the outside world. And if a pandemic came into their community, so you got 10 people sick, and you got 20 others who are going to lose their jobs because of it, what would happen in that community? Well, they'd help each other out, and the 10 sick people would be taken care of, and nobody would lose their homes. Or if one of their homes collapsed, they would just live with the other people. Like, everyone would be fed and clothed and housed. It would be very simple. And that could be on a much larger scale, and it doesn't need to be called. It's not communism. It's just rational. That there's no reason anyone should be homeless. And I think you did a segment on Utah's program that ended homelessness for a few years, didn't you?
Yeah, homeless housing first that they got, I think, it originated in Finland.
Yeah. And basically, they just gave people houses, and they found out it saved them money. And now their homelessness has gone back up since 2015 because, quote unquote, they stopped doing that.
Well, if it's working too well, we can't let that happen.
We got to abandon that. But what this comes down to is this market economy, unfettered capitalist economics that does not need to work this way. We have accepted it. We are the fish in the water, and one of them says, "How's the water today?" And the other fish says, "The what?" Like, we're in it, and we just don't realize it doesn't need to be this way. It's insanity. Another reason it's like this is because we've used GDP to decide success in a society. GDP only originated around World War II, is when the term even started being used. And then it became more and more prevalent. And now it's how every society, except for a couple, Bhutan has gross national happiness, but it's basically how every society decides their success. But it's a judgment of production, of consumption, of endlessly putting out and eating our world, where you could have a different form of an economic analysis that judged the health of people and the happiness of people and how good our green spaces are. And that discussion is never even had.
Well, I mean, if I understand you correctly, you're a godless hippie that hates freedom. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, that's what, if you take the first letter of every word I said, that's what it spells. Yeah.
So your speech was an anagram or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's such an amazing point that you're making. And I think Well, I think a lot of Americans still don't. Because right now the economy, and we've talked about this before, but this last 4 months, the economy's just been propped up, and all these looming things are coming. This 28 million evictions. I mean, and so other stuff we've talked about on this show, like the protests in Portland and the moms in Portland. Well, what happens when there's going to be we're not leaving our home protests? There's going to be where's our food protests? There's going to be a lot of that.
And in some of the purged history that you're not allowed to learn about is America has a very strong history of eviction protests, people standing up in their neighborhoods and fighting against evictions, especially back during the Great Depression. And, you know, that is history that you aren't going to get in your standard third grade class.
I mean, the history books said Christopher Columbus was this nice, friendly guy, and America's the only country that helped win World War II or whatever. The thing that's just like,
I think in my class they did teach that a couple of people said they were not going to be evicted, and then Christopher Columbus stormed in and kicked their asses.
Yeah. Yes. And Japanese people in World War II said, "Oh, we'll gladly give up our homes to go to these camps. It sounds fun." So it's you bring up an excellent point, because the government secret is the history of Americans being basically lied to about how our economy works, thinking that we're all, and that the myth of like the American dream and all this other stuff. And, people in the 50s and 60s were like, boy, if we ever go off the gold standard, we're in trouble. And then Nixon took us off the gold standard, and everyone was like, okay, cool. And we're all, it kind of feels like this quarantine, this COVID, and then of course, the murder of George Floyd. All of these things have existed prior, but this pandemic and everybody at home has really pulled the cover off on all of America's lies and problems and our economic, because that GDP thing, that's just we've all been sold. It's like, well, the stock market's doing well. Who gives a shit? 85% of all stocks are owned by 1% of the population. When the stock market did great or it did poorly, did it affect your life financially or my life financially? No. It doesn't affect any American. Even if you're somebody that has a couple $1,000s in stocks, it didn't really affect you have to have $100 million in stocks for that to like sway, like, oh, my stock portfolio is now worth 120 million, or now it's worth 70. So this notion we've been sold. And right. It's this whole consumer, and it comes down on the local level. It's funny, the stuff that the ruling class does on the federal level and all that, our foreign policy with the war, how that's parallel. We need the way we respond with our military is the way our police respond locally, and it's the same thing. So on a local level, we think, oh, the person with the big house and the fancy cars, they're doing great. Are they? Or are they in debt up to their eyeballs? Because we've been told, buy, get the new, get the fancy, get the big thing. And it's all coming undone. I mean, it's all coming undone. And I think people being locked in their homes for the last 4 months are realizing the human connection and what's important. And as this economy gets worse, people are really going to be confronted with that.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, I know we don't have any time left, but the weird thing is if you really dig into these things is you really get to the root of it. Why do we even want the fancy car and the fancy house? Like, that goes back to, what we were talking about with advertising earlier. It's like, I'm not saying that someone might not want a faster car to get somewhere faster, but why specifically that $100,000 car versus the $10,000 car? It's because we have grown up in a culture that is just endlessly beat us to death with the idea that, well, happiness is that car. Happiness is this shiny thing. And it's really tough to break out of that. It's really tough to say no to a fucking lifetime of social programming. social engineering.
Yeah.
We don't really call it that, but I think that should be the term that we use all the time. It's like with every ad break, with every Hollywood movie, most of them, we're getting a little dose of social engineering, and it's turned us into monsters who just want to destroy the planet because it's fun.
Yeah, because it gets us a newer, fancier thing rather than, you're right. So we've been engineered to not ask the question, hey, what's best for society? I don't have any kids. You don't have any kids. But we both know that if everybody got good education and free college, that would make our society better. And this notion of like, well, I don't have kids. Who cares? That's ridiculous. Like, me buying,
even the people who have kids say, well, my kids aren't in public school, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Which is it's a mystifying to me. Like the cutting your nose off to spite your face is just like, and these people are like, oh, defund the police and rah, rah. I know cops don't want to deal with the homeless problem. Like, don't you want to live in a city where everyone has a home and is treated decently? And don't you want to live in a society where unarmed black men don't get killed? The cops can't just murder you. Like, isn't that what you want? Or are you just like, well, no, and there's more crime, so don't you want to stop crime? No, I'm just going to buy a gun and get a gated house. Yeah, good luck, man. Let me know how that turns out.
Yeah, actually, the cops dealing with all these things like homelessness and everything. I'm getting into that in an upcoming episode of Redacted tonight, because this guy, I don't have his name on my fingertips, but he a former police officer, and he's a professor now, and he teaches about policing, and he put out an article about how people don't understand what police spend their time doing. And he created this chart where it shows how much of their time they spend doing each of these different things. And the vast majority of the chart is filled with lost property, giving directions, homeless people, mentally ill people, dealing with that's the vast majority of what police spend their time doing. And his point is, look, here's why we need to fund police, because what they do is not run around shooting at people. They spend all their time dealing with mentally ill people and homeless people and stuff. And he doesn't realize that, in fact, he's giving the argument why we must defund the police. Yeah. Because the police should not be doing all this stuff. If you want people to give out speeding tickets, then have speed watchers that aren't armed. Yeah. If you want someone to take care of the homeless people, then have a homeless people helpers that go in to help them that aren't armed. There's no reason the cops should do all these things except for the fact that the ruling elite need a basically fascist force on all the street corners in case they need them activated.
Oh, yeah. Because, you find me a photo or a video of a cop putting their knee on the neck of a billionaire, and I'll give you $1,000. Like, it doesn't exist.
I've seen it once, but it was a kinky dominatrix thing, and the guy was in. It was one of those buttless cop outfits.
More like a strippergram, which I'm down with. If a cop wanted to do that, that'd be fun. Well, all right, Lee. I guess that's.
I think that's the episode. I think we did it. But we'll be hopefully back again next week. Folks, please share this. Let everyone know that we are available on none of the podcast platforms.
We're keeping this a government secret.
Part of the gimmick is this podcast is a secret.
If you can find it, congratulations.
For now, we hope to be on the platform soon. For now, you can listen to us on Libsyn, or we'll be tweeting out the links, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we hope you'll subscribe to the various channels. My stuff's all at leecamp.com, where you can also find my book, and my comedy special is at Lee Camp. It's free. It's at leecamp.american.com. And Graham, your stuff?
If you go to grahamelwood.com, you can get my YouTube show, which is The Political Vigilante. And I cover a lot of stuff, MMT, politics, Epstein stuff, obviously. And then, of course, all my Patreon and social media is at grahamelwood.com. And my some movies that I've directed and T-shirts and merchandise are all at grahamelwood.com. And of course, I'm also on rockfin.com/grahamelwood, a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. So check that out.
Check it out. Thanks, folks. Until next time. See you soon.
Government secrets.
End of the episode.
Everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.